you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the Modern Day Vet podcast. My name is Marie. If this is your first time tuning in, where we bridge the gap between military and civilian sector. We have an amazing guest today that we served together back in 2013. This man is amazing. He is so awesome. I'm going to have you introduce yourself, please.
I'm Steve Timmons. I retired from the military in 2021 after 34 years. I retired as a Master Chief, technically as a Force Master Chief, but it's neither here nor there. But had an incredible career with some amazing help from amazing people. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not really much to me other than the 34 years that I spent slugging it out in the military.
You're so humble. I love it. I love you. Yeah, that is. All right. So you said you did 34 years. Well, obviously you retired 2021, but my math isn't amazing. So when did you join? Did you join straight out of high school?
I didn't. I joined a year after high school because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But it was clearly obvious to me that I lacked direction and I lacked something to get up for every day. And quite honestly, I just wanted to get away from everything. I just wanted to start on my own. I couldn't wait. And so I joined the Navy in 1987, May 19th. Yeah, May 19th, 1987. And never intended on staying, Marie. I was really going to get out, but a few things happened that changed my life. And that's probably for a different podcast, but unless you want to know.
Well, this podcast is a tell-all. So what happened?
I joined the Navy in 1987. I did okay. I mean, my first couple of years were a little like anybody, just trying to find your way, your footing, and figure life out. I met a girl, and we got married. And soon after that, had a child. My daughter, my oldest, and I was stationed aboard a battleship, USS Iowa, and we left in February. Or March, one of those 2 months. We were going out to do battle group exercises and some other stuff. And tragically, the gun turret blew up and killed 47 people. And that day I was thrust into a position from being, just a normal sailor on board to I ended up fighting the fires for the next 9-10 hours and hauling out bodies of the turret for the next, and that day kind of taught me how fragile life is and how easily it'll be gone. And there was some times there that, for hours there that I really thought it was over, that I had a newborn baby and a new bride that I was never going to get to see again. But somehow God showed favor in my life from some training that I just rested on. And I don't want to pat myself on the back, but it just came natural to me to just do that stuff. I don't know why. It wasn't because I wasn't scared. I was scared. I cried. I didn't want to do it, but if I didn't, who would? That's kind of the mentality I took it on. And I think, as I was telling some friends afterwards, like, how did you go up in that turret? How could you do that? I said, I don't know, but I surely wasn't going to be able to not go and look at all those men in the face and say I just couldn't overcome the fear. So somehow I was able to overcome the fear and put it aside and just go up in there and fight for your life. Right? I mean, and for a long time, it never really affected me. Like, I didn't think it did. But it wasn't until like around 2000 that I realized that, wow, I carried some trauma from that I never really dealt with. Because back then, I mean, think about it. A gun turret on your ship blows up, sends a shockwave and blast that almost puts the ship in peril. And we came back that happened on April 19th. We came back by the end of April. And by June, we deployed for 8 months on that ship. That's just unheard of today.
Yeah.
Unheard of. But the human body and the human mind is incredibly resilient. You just got to give it time to be resilient. You can't rush it. Right. And heck, our families didn't even know who was dead or who made it or who was wounded or anything until we pulled back in Pierside. Because communication, I mean, we didn't have emails. We didn't have cell phones and stuff like that, just radio, telephone. And I don't think anybody was really sure until like the morning of us pulling in who the casualties were and what was what. So I would say that probably shaped me for the rest of my career. Right. And taught me it. I learned to play military a little better from that.
Mm-hmm. Now, during that time, I assume that they did have a corpsman on the ship, correct?
Oh yeah, we had a full medical hospital on board. We had surgeons, we had multiple doctors. Probably, I'm just going to guess 5 or 6 IDCs.
Did they offer you guys any mental health care?
No, and when we pulled in off deployment, we pulled in from that event happening. I think there was some counseling, but I wasn't I didn't take part in it. Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't know, right? I don't know. And I don't want to say it's the Navy's fault because it may have just been my naiveness and my own way of grieving that I just needed to be left alone. And I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to tell people what I saw and the things I did. The people that knew, they already knew, right? But I didn't need to be patted on the back, and I didn't need to go sit in a room and feel like I needed to cry in front of anybody. And honestly, I only cried one time, and I did it and didn't even know it. I just woke up one morning and I was just sitting on the side of my bed, just bawling, and I didn't really understand why. But it was just a different Navy. I'm not saying they didn't know. I think they knew. They just didn't know. They didn't have the resources or the wherewithal to do anything about it. The most important thing was we got to get this ship underway, get it out on deployment. And I think a few people missed deployment, but not many, because they weren't willing to let people go. And I don't know that I would have wanted to be let go. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go on that deployment. I wanted to see it through. So we went, and it was hard, I've only been back one time. I went back in somewhere around 2012 or 13. They're home ported, or not home ported, but the ship is a museum up in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I went to go see it. And I went to some places. I went to where I slept and where I ate, and went down to where I worked, but I could still smell it. I could still smell the smell. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's probably mentally, Marie, that was flooding back. I doubt you could smell it, but I could. And they asked me if I wanted to go up into the turret to see, and I couldn't. It was almost like being paralyzed with fear. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want no one to know that. I just said, no, I don't want to go. But the truth is, it just had paralyzed me in fear. And I just, I just couldn't do it because all I could think about was, my first division officer in the Navy was a guy named Philip Buck. He was my first division officer, and really, really nice guy. Not your, I mean, he was an officer, and I was a junior enlisted, but he was just like one of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And he was such a nice guy, just from Pennsylvania, and just very cool. But you wanted to work for him. And when we pulled him out of that turret, the only thing we had to identify him was the stenciling on his underwear. Back then, we used to stencil the elastic strip on our underwear with our last name and last four of our social security number.
Yeah.
And because that's the only, really, from about his shoulders to his knees was all the body that was left of him. So, changed my life. And then, a couple of my buddies were killed in there and carried them out as well. And I mean, it was just carnage. I mean, there's no way to describe to people what a blast like that inside a steel box, what it does to the human body.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was bad. But you know what? I made it. Right?
You definitely did.
I made it. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I haven't had struggles and I don't have nightmares. I do. But I've learned to deal with them. I've learned to cope with them. So.
Now, you said you shouldn't pat yourself on the back. Now, you said you wouldn't pat yourself on the back, but I would, because you're an amazing, amazing leader, and you should pat yourself on the back. Because when I met you, I was a junior sailor, and I looked up to you a lot. You were super duper awesome. So definitely pat yourself on the back, because you're a natural born amazing leader. And don't let that just slide off your shoulder of like, oh, I just did 34 years and that's it. 34 years is a very long time. I'm not even 34 years old yet. So definitely give yourself grace of being such an amazing leader. And you definitely had a lot of impact on people in Bahrain. Just don't forget that at all.
Every once in a while, somebody will send me the video of me leaving Bahrain.
That video made me cry. Yes, I have. I cried when you left.
Makes me cry too.
Yeah.
So, and listen, all I ever wanted to be, all I ever aspired to be was the best version of me. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like I was ever better or any worse or any more entitled to anything than a brand new kid coming out of boot camp. Mm-hmm. I know what they're facing, and I understand what they're going through. And everyone's like, oh, well, things have changed so much. Well, I got news for you. I disagree. Things haven't changed that much. It's still the same struggle. Mm-hmm. Young people today growing up, it's the same hustle as when I grew up. We all want it. Nobody wants to be hot. Nobody wants to be cold. Everyone wants to love, and everyone wants to feel love. And everyone wants to be part of a team. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Your goal as a leader is to see how they fit into that team and make them fit into that team. And you'll be astonished at what you get out of them if you don't give up on them. And I tend to think that most of the young sailors today, people are quick to throw away. But I like the guys and the girls or the young sailors to have road rash, right? And you give them a second or a third or a fourth chance because they'll be loyal to you. Mm-hmm. And they'll work hard. And my Facebook and my emails and my text messages are flooded yearly with people that said, thanks for never giving up on me. When everyone else said, throw me out, kick them out of the Navy, don't. And the captain looked at you and said, what do I do? And you said, give them to me. I'll take care of them. I'll take ownership of that. There's a few, Marie, that I couldn't help. I just couldn't. Right? There's things that I won't help you take ownership of. I'm not going to help you if I call it crimes against humanity. if you if you harass people, sexually assault people, or if you're just a genuinely an evil person, I'm going to do my best to move you out in the right way. I mean, I'm not going to stand on the line and call for their execution, but I don't want them on my team to hurt any of my team members. So, but other than that, I'm pretty, hey, look, whatever it takes to help you be successful in life. If you're successful, then I feel like I've been successful. So let's just do it together. And that's why I've insisted on leading PT every day, right? I can't expect young sailors to come out and give it out if the master chief doesn't. So I did it.
Definitely.
I let it out every morning. Sore, broken, tired. Didn't want to go, but I did it.
Most definitely. You did an amazing job with PT. Now, you've taken care of people for so long. Yeah. Are you taking care of yourself now after retirement? How was your transition from active duty to when it was time to retire? How was that transition? And what state did you retire out of?
I retired out of Virginia, North Carolina. So, Marie, when I retired, I didn't have a retirement ceremony.
Okay.
It was right in the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So I kind of unceremoniously just kind of faded into the sunset, which truthfully, I was okay with, because I always thought watching people sitting on the stage doing a retirement ceremony, I always felt bad for them, because what do you say? What do you say of all these people that are standing up there saying all these wonderful things about you? That's a lot of, I don't know. I do wish that my wife and daughters could have had that experience, because they gave up a tremendous amount to do that. Right. And since I retired, so when I went to go retire, they weren't even doing TAP.
Oh, wow.
It was all virtual, and it was a joke. I said in the first day of TAP virtually, it was so bad. The connection, the effort, it was just checking a box. And I said, you know what? I'm not checking a box. I'm going to be fine. I'm just not going to do it. So I relied on a few people that helped me out, get my paperwork straight, for the VA and stuff. One of the guys out there, he's retired, but his name is Andrew Thompson, prior Force Master Chief as well. He really taught me in how to do it, and walked me through my CMP exams, and walked me through, the VA and how to get the most of my VA benefits. And I would say that mentally, I'm probably better today than I was yesterday.
Okay.
Or last week or last month or maybe 10 years. But, I still got work to do. I realize that. So, I mean, it's a huge change from being 34 years in the Navy and having the ability to affect things and affect change and affect lives, to where one day you just don't have that anymore. So, but I don't miss being on active duty. People are like, oh, do you miss it? No.
I don't miss it either.
No, I mean, because here's the deal. I did everything I wanted to do, and I did to the best of my ability. What do I have to miss? It's now it's time for others to step up and carry on that legacy. And I think people are still out there doing it. I've never subscribed to the fact that today's sailor is not as good as yesterday's sailor. I don't buy that at all. I don't. I think they're just as capable. I think the thing that today's generation gets joked on about is because they're not blindly following leaders.
Yes.
Right? There's so much at our fingertips to go verify what is being said, and Look, when I was a young sailor, the last person you would ever talk to would be a mast chief. No. But I didn't want sailors to feel that way with me. I wanted them, if I'm walking down the spine or if I'm walking around or my door is open to my office, walk in and sit down. Right? Mm-hmm. Come see me. Before you do something really stupid, come see me and sit down. And let's just talk about it. I used to have a policy in all my CMC rides that, hey, look, consider my office a safe place. Before you say or do something really stupid, come into my office and sit down. I won't ask you nothing. I won't say nothing to you. I just want you to cool off. Do whatever you need to do. If you want to cry, sit over there and cry. If you need a hug, we'll work it out. But I've had sailors walk in and sit down and sit there and cry and just look at their hands, and they sit there for a half hour to an hour, and then they stand up and walk out. That's all they needed. They just needed a place where nobody could bother them. No chief or master chief or officer was going to come yell and scream and ask them where they're at, because then they'd have to deal with me. Right? Everybody deserves that space to just get their head straight. It worked out for me well.
It did. It did. You definitely were the safe space to many sailors, a lot. But I hear you say that you were the safe space for a lot of sailors, which you were. What's your safe space now? Do you have a safe space now? Have you been able to find one now that you're in the civilian sector? Do you have a sense of community now that you're out? Like, you did an amazing amount of years. You've done so much for the military community. Is the VA community serving you well? And be honest. It's a podcast. No one's going to judge you. We talk real shit here.
So truly my safe place today resides with my wife and daughters and grandkids, mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't really need, and I'm not gonna lie, there's times where I just need to be alone, right? And I just need to just sit here and get through it and not be questioned, and just let me just sit here and get through this. And sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it may be a couple days, but I don't have a ton of contact with military folks anymore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a close network of friends still, and I still know people on active duty. I just, I still talk to some of my bosses. But I don't have this deep sense of of wanting to be connected in the military anymore. I've done my time, and mm-hmm. I just kind of just want to go.
Just live in peace.
I just want to finish out my life. Yeah. And, listen, I've not had the horrible experiences with the VA that you hear people trash them about. I don't. For the most part, they're okay. I mean, it's like the military, Marines. You're going to run into people in the VA that are really good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're going to run into people that, they're just biding their GS time out in the VA and just pushing the buttons to get through their career. But, like my healthcare provider, he's one guy, and he probably has a couple hundred patients. And
hold on. Let me cut you off right there. I'm going to cut you off right there, because you keep giving everybody the benefit of the doubt as if you don't deserve the best care. You served 34 years. You're still an amazing person. You deserve the best fucking care. Plain and simple. I don't care how many fucking patients he has. You deserve the best care. All veterans deserve the best care because we sacrifice a lot on the line. A lot. So you deserve the best. So I'm going to let you finish now, but don't forget that you deserve the best.
It's a double-edged sword for me, because, I still have TRICARE too. right? I can use TRICARE or the VA. I typically stay with the VA because both. I don't, you know what, Marie, no, it's not great care. It's not. But I've had good experiences with the VA, like the nurse practitioners. They've always been very good, like the VA messaging app, like you can message your VA provider. I've never had them not respond within 24 hours. But do you get the results in the timely manner that you would expect them to be? No, you probably have to be a little bit more proactive on my part or our part, go out and kind of ping them. And I do. But I also realize, hey, listen, man, you're not the only serviceman out there that's got health issues. And I don't have major health issues. I just, I got some jacked up shoulders and knees, and that's probably from the years of PT. And, I didn't PT just one day a week. I did it all the time. And I don't know. I mean, I think the VA has gotten better in my career, right? Especially for the, I think it's gotten better. It has a ways to go, but they got to attract the right people into the right jobs. And I just don't know that the good ones or the healthcare providers that are out there, that there's enough of them to be choosy and picky on who you take into the VA system. I mean, I see all kinds of postings all the time for VA healthcare people that they can't find nobody. So, Harvard has, Harvard Medical School and medical schools have no issues. Those top end hospitals have no issues gaining quality people, but the lower end ones sure do. Why? Because they don't pay as well.
That's true. So really quick, let's get into, so you said something about TRICARE for the people that are probably still looking into retire, medically retire, or just get out. TRICARE, if I'm not mistaken, is for only if you retire. If you know the difference.
Yes. You have to be, when you get out, you have, I think, 90 days you retain your health. But Rachel and I think got into Care for Life. I don't remember what exactly what it's called, but it cost me $50 a month.
Okay.
For full coverage medical care.
Okay.
Who in the heck could beat that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I have, because of my status with the VA, I did retire at 100%. I have great benefits. I really do. But
now, are you aware?
Just some things that have happened in the military that you're just not going to overcome.
Have you been using mental health at the VA?
So no, and I'll tell you why. Well, it all stems from my active duty time, and I'm going to say something that's wildly unpopular here with Big Navy, and that's okay. I'm just going to say it. All the Instagram, the sayings that the Navy has about it's okay not to be okay.
I know it started like way later, like it wasn't in the beginning of your career. It started like towards my career, kind of. However, you can change because there is free mental health care for you.
I will tell you the stigma was beyond in mental health care that still resides in active duty today. Right? They're going to tell you it's okay not to be okay, but I'm telling you from personal experience and watching it happen that if you go for mental health issues and you're a senior folk or you're a mid-grade folk or a sailor, it's going to affect your career. You will be seen as damaged goods. You guaranteed. I have seen it happen behind closed doors. I've heard the conversations. And I just felt it was better to shut up and color.
So I understand your stigma of when you joined, because you joined in, you said 1983?
87.
87? Okay, so you joined in 1987. When did you feel like the posters of like mental health first, or is the word propaganda? Is that a good word for it? When that started coming out of like
2000s.
seeing late 2000s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, probably around mid 2000s, 2010, 2012. And then it really kind of got rolling with steam. Probably 2017, 16, somewhere around that time frame.
So for you, you feel like it's still really new to you. But if you were, let's say you were in now, would you not refer your junior sailor to mental health if they needed it?
Absolutely, I would. You have to. You can't as a leader take that ownership on yourself. You have to pass that on to a trained professional. But I will just tell you, Marie, from my own experience, that some sailors today use it as a crutch to get out of something they don't want to do, or to avoid the consequences of what they did, but not everybody, but that gives everybody else a bad name. Everybody wants to use the trigger of suicide awareness, and this whole thing, 22 vets a day commit suicide. That's a whole different topic that's being miscategorized, and it's not true. The 22 vets a day is not true. It's simply not even close to being true. But do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
No.
Jordan Peterson said itself that the world is relying on psychologists and clinical social workers to fix their problems, when the solution always resides within each one of us, right? And there are times that, yes, I believe a clinical psychologist or a professional help is necessary. But I think a lot of people just use it as a crutch because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with their infidelity or their steps, and they don't want to deal with the consequences. So then they claim mental health, right? I can't tell you the number of sailors that got in trouble, and the first thing they did was want to go see the chaplain and go see a doctor because they were going to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
You can't take that anything other than dead serious, right? And I would say probably at least an overwhelming majority of those was a ruse, right? They're just trying to avoid being in trouble. And I think we missed the true ones, though, because the true people that want to commit suicide, or the true people that need help, they do it. They get sifted through the cracks because they don't give you a warning. Most of this, I've had my fair share of sailors commit suicide on my watch. I never knew it. I had no indication. I had no warning. I think anybody that knows me knows that I know my sailors, right? And I'm an approachable type of guy. There's no reason to not approach me. I think the ones that are truly going to do it miss it. And because people don't want to talk about it. People that are in true desperation trouble, a lot of times won't talk about it. Why? Because the ugly stigma about it, right? And I get it. I get it. And the time that, I did seek some professional help while I was on active duty, because the nightmares just became hot and fast. They were happening every day, and I wasn't sleeping. I mean, I was sleeping like a couple hours a day. I mean, I'd go to work and I'd just shut it all off and get through the day. And when the day was over, you turn out the lights, you're left there by yourself to try to figure this out. And I just wasn't figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And all they didn't want to do, Maria, is throw a bunch of, they had me on 6 medications. And it was making things worse. So I went to see my doctor, and she's like, well, you just can't stop the medications because they'll have adverse side effects, and we're worried about that. I'm like, well, why would you prescribe them to me if they have all this bad? They're like, well, and I said, well, I'm stopping. I just stopped cold turkey.
You cannot do that.
And
you can't do stuff like that.
I know. I get that. But I will tell you, I have something that others don't have. I have an amazing family. I have an amazing spouse. And I truly believe in the spiritual aspect of life. Right? I believe in God. Mm-hmm. I make no apologies about it. And my wife was a praying wife. And I'd say any progress that I've made on the road to mental fitness has been a large part because of my family and my wife, and some really close friends. And mm-hmm. You know what? I haven't had a nightmare. I've had some micro nightmares, but I know it triggers them too. Like if my wife and I, or if I'm having conflict with somebody in my family, or there was conflict, there is a pretty good bet that when I go to bed that I'm going to have a nightmare. It just triggers it. I don't know why, it just does. Mm-hmm. And I would say in the last 1.5 years, 2 years, I've probably had maybe 12, where I would have 12 in 12 days while I was on active duty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And of course the VA sees that, and they're like, well, we'd like you to see this person. So I went and saw this person, and we want to start you on this stuff. And
just be open. Okay. Be open-minded to not a psychiatrist, because the psychiatrists are the ones that prescribe the medication, but be open-minded to a psychologist where you could speak to them about your traumas to see if they can give you little activities or challenges you can do to kind of improve that. Because they do have like little community sessions and things like that.
They do. But here's what most people don't understand about me, because they see me at work, mm-hmm. and they say, oh, Steve's an extrovert. Right? He's an extrovert. He's the guy out front. He's leading it. He's fired up, motivated, running down the spine, screaming and shouting, and just, you wouldn't think he's got any issues. Well, what you don't know is all of that comes at a cost for me. Right? I'll exude all that energy on a group or people to make them feel good and feel confident, but it costs me because it eats my energy up. And then when I go home, at some point, I'm going to have to recoup that energy somehow. And I do it being quiet and just being left alone. Right. And it may take a day, it may take a couple hours, it may take a week. I don't know. But look, when I was in Bahrain, I'd go home at night with Joe, my roommate, Joe Marlowe, good friend of mine. You'd know him if you saw him.
Was it the Master Chief Haas? No.
He'd be like, dude, you are so different. Huh?
Master Chief Haas?
Master Chief Marlowe.
Probably would if I saw him.
You would know him if you saw him. Him and I did PT sessions time together.
Okay.
And Joe made a comment and says, you are much different at work than you are at home. And I'm like, well, look, when I go to work, people rely on me. right? And being in the service is just that. You're in service to others. And if you're unwilling to do that and making that sacrifice for them, you're in the wrong line of work. Just plain and simple. So I put it on the back burner. But you are right. There are things that if it got to a point, Marie, where I thought that I was in danger or anybody was in danger of harming myself, either mentally or physically, I'd go seek help.
Okay.
I would. But so far, I've been able to manage it with the things that I've learned in the military. I have an incredibly hard time of crying, right? It takes an astronomical amount of pressure from, because, boys don't cry. That's how I was raised. We don't cry. But I'm a father of 2 daughters, and I have 3 granddaughters and 3 grandsons, and any of them can make me cry pretty easily. Right?
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. But listen. I mean, the U.S. government pays us to go out and do hard stuff. And if I don't want anyone else asking my sailors to put their lives on the line or do something as hard other than me, I want to do it. I don't want nobody else doing it, because if they're going to go down, I want to go down with them. That's just how I feel. And I want to lead by example.
And you definitely have.
It matters to me, right? And those mothers and fathers have entrusted those young kids to us. And if you really think about what they are, they're the best this country has to offer. And some of them come in with a lot of road rash on them. I could tell you thousands of stories of kids that joined the Navy, didn't have a dad that they knew. They never had their own toothbrush. They didn't sleep in their own bed. A story that will never get old with me, Marie, was I was doing a barracks inspection in Groton, Connecticut. Some pretty bad birthings. And this kid shows up. And he wanted to talk to me, but you could tell that he was not going to, because everyone was around. So I went and found him. And he said, Master Chief, I grew up poor. He says, this is the first time that I knew where my next meal was coming from, that I didn't have to wear socks that somebody else wore, that I had my own bed, and that we had we had heat. And I said, what do you eat? He goes, well, listen, when I was growing up in Baltimore in the summer, we didn't have electricity during the winter because we couldn't afford it. We only turned the electricity on for the winter to heat. And we only turned it on when we couldn't bear it. And I'm like, he goes, Master, there was 5 kids in my house, in a 1-bedroom house. We slept anywhere we could. And you know what? That's why we're important. That's why leadership is important, to get that out of kids, so you know what you're dealing with. And he was so grateful to be in the Navy and to have a chance. And I just was willing to do anything to make sure that chance stayed alive for that kid. And I've kind of lost touch with him, but for a few years, him and I stayed in touch. And I think once I got out, he doesn't have my personal email. He had my work email. But I'm just, listen, I'm very blessed. I'm very grateful. I've had an incredible career around some incredible young sailors. And I'll say it now, and I'll say it until the day I die. The best ideas and the best leadership ideas always came from your sailors, because they're the ones living in it. And if you can't hear what they have to say, then you can't beat them.
Yes, you're right.
And if I couldn't deal with, if there was times where they're like, we want to do this, we want to do that. So we'd sit down and have a conversation. And I'm like, this is why I can't do that. Oh, okay. Thanks for explaining it to me. Well, what did the last Master Chief say? He didn't say nothing. We never even talked to the last Master Chief. Well, what the hell is your job then? If you're a Master Chief and you're not accessible to every single person, then what's your role? Really, what's the use of you? So, I'd always rather be around junior sailors. I couldn't stand getting dressed up and going hanging out with senior folks that were out of touch and just had no concept, especially the senior officers. Not saying that some of them didn't have rough lives and didn't grow up like that, but the preponderance of them all had the wherewithal to send them to college and, had somewhat of a stable home. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that there's not a few that didn't, but most of them can't relate to those kids because they never grew up in a berthing 3 with 90 people and 4 toilets and 2 showers. I mean, that's just look, I'm not above scrubbing toilets. When my last command had my own bathroom, or whatever you want to call it, bathroom head. I refuse to let people clean my office. Mm-hmm. I'll do it my daggone self. You didn't join the military to come clean my bathroom. I can clean my own daggone toilet.
And that's what makes you a great leader. You're just humble. I love it. So is there anything else you would like to say for the podcast for anybody that's listening in?
I'll leave from this. If you are a sailor and you are transitioning out of the military service, whether for 2 years or 30 years, you need to reach out to those that have gone before you and get the 411, right? Mm-hmm. And don't take it from a single source. Find some good mentors out there that have gotten out, that did it right, didn't scam the system, and didn't, I know everybody wants to run out there. How'd you get 100%? How'd you get 100%? The truth be told, I don't know, but you don't want 100%. Because the things that come with that were not pleasant. And anybody that's been in my shoes would gladly trade those bad things for that 100%. All right. But it's a process, and people like you in this podcast, I hope it benefits people and they realize that, hey, look, there is help out there for me. I just have to utilize it and trust in it. And there's sometimes I don't have trust in it, but it's a growing process. And, as I tell people, don't do everything I did, just what I tell you to do. Right? Just don't be afraid to open up and share your experiences with other veterans.
Yes.
But,
yes. But we'll talk about that offline.
I'm very grateful that there's people out there like you.
Oh, we'll definitely talk about that offline, because I'll be harassing you in a little bit. But anyway,
here's my 3 pearls of wisdom. Mm-hmm. These 3 things alone will help you be successful. 1, show up on time. Mm-hmm. On time, right? Early means on time. Look good in your uniform. Mm-hmm. Show up on time. Look good in your uniform. It shows that you meant to be there. Mm-hmm. It shows effort. Don't wear plastic shoes. Show up, shine your boots, brush your teeth, comb your hair, cut your fingernails, look good in uniform. And the last is the single most hardest thing for everyone to do, but it's the most important. Have a good attitude. No matter what's going on, no matter what happened, have a good attitude about it. It's not going to last forever.
Yes.
Just smile. People will want to work with you if you have a good attitude.
Thank you for that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you feel like this podcast or this episode specifically can benefit someone mentally, or if you just need that little boost of maybe your leadership needs a little kick in the ass and they need to kind of take care of the junior sailors, go ahead and share this podcast with them. Like, subscribe, and have a great night.